the course of Viridian Flashback, I've covered games that have been inspired by one bigger title in its respective genre. First-person shooters that borrowed from Halo, RPGs that took inspiration from Final Fantasy and Zelda, and action games from a little shooter in 2001 called Max Payne. But why Max Payne? What is it about this series that had numerous developers and publishers take from this franchise and make their own attempts that were mostly received with a resounding, it's okay. Released in July of that year for PC, Max Payne may have been very similar to most third-person shooters at the time, but it was its well-written story, penned by Sam Lake, as well as use of bullet time as a game mechanic, which helped it stand out from the rest, resulting in becoming a critical and retail success. Due to this, Rockstar Games went on to port the game for the new consoles at the time, the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox, as well as purchasing the rights to the series. And, well, then the clones came in, along with Max's own sequel a few years later. But it's been almost 20 years this July, and, well, let that sink in for a minute. 20 years since Max Payne came out. 20 years since Max Payne bullet dodged his way onto the scene. And, well, thanks to our good friend and patron Stefan, it's time to find out if Max Payne and its sequel, The Fall of Max Payne, which is still kind of a ridiculous name for a sequel. Anyway, it's time to find out if these two are still worth playing on the big green today. So without any further ado, let's head into the night and find out. Like most good noir stories, Max Payne's begins at the end with him standing on top of a skyscraper as police arrive to arrest him. It's from there we're taken back a few years. We learn that Payne, an NYPD officer, heads home to find his wife and newborn daughter brutally murdered at the hands of junkies hopped on a new drug called Valkyr. Slipping into a deep depression, Max transfers to the DEA. Back in the present, Max is undercover as a member of the Punchinello crime family. When he meets his handler and friend Alex at the subway, he's murdered by a mysterious assassin. Max then becomes the prime suspect since he fled the scene and is still undercover, while at the same time, the Mafia finds out he's a cop and is out for his blood. What entails next is a search for not only Max's revenge for his family's murder, but uncovering the answers to a conspiracy bigger than he imagined. It goes without saying that Max Payne has one of the best stories told in the game medium, and it's due to the imagination of Sam Lake. Lake crafts a story that at the time wasn't really seen much in a video game. The way Payne inner monologues during the game was an interesting way to get inside his head, to feel what he's going through during that long, cold New York night. Also, having the cutscenes play in a graphic novel motif was a nice touch, even if it was probably more for budgetary reasons. As stated earlier, Payne is a third-person shooter where you progress through the story with slight platforming and puzzle solving throughout, though the main focus is of course straight up action. You start off with a 9mm handgun, but as you go on you'll acquire more weapons including handguns, shotguns, and rifles. You'll also come across health restoring painkillers which you can stock up to 8, which is handy since you can get shredded by enemy gunfire pretty quickly if you're not careful. Of course, the most useful trick in the bag is bullet time. With the press of a button, time slows to a crawl, giving you a small window to plan and react to any situation you may be in, plus you look like a complete badass doing it. That's pretty much all there is to how it plays, but that's fine. It may be simple, but it's fun, and truthfully, having fun with a game should be the most important part. Plus, after you beat the game, you can test your skills on the more harder difficulties, if you're into that sort of thing. I do have to admit though, after being able to play Max Payne on PC after playing it on Xbox, the controls on the big green aren't as precise as a mouse and keyboard. And this coming from someone who can't do much with mouse and keyboard, that's saying a lot. Though there is auto-aim to help out, I'd say controlling Max with a Duke or Controller S is pretty serviceable. Visually, Max has gotten a little long in the tooth as the years have gone on, but for an almost 20-year-old game, that's to be expected. The levels you traverse, mostly buildings, do have that old cardboardy look, but it's not an eyesore. Though the dream sequences might make you a little nauseous with the slow-mo and the blur effects. As for characters, they too aren't as great looking like they were back then, but when you have the charming look of Max, which was provided by Lake as he portrayed Max in the cutscenes and game model, none of that matters. Audio, on the other hand, is still a delight. The music still stands out today with that iconic piano theme and a soundtrack that leans more towards the Hong Kong action films that inspired the gameplay. For the acting, Max's voice is portrayed by James McCaffrey, who does a phenomenal job of capturing the broken, brooding soul of Payne, a character he'd become more familiar with as the series went on.
Cogniti ran out of steam in a dead-end alley with steam boiling out of the sewer grates like all the fires of hell were burning high beneath us. It was shakedown time. Where's Lupino?
Screw you!
Bad start, Vinny.
Ah! Police brutality!
I rate pretty high on that.
You can't just hurt me in cold blood?
Just keep telling yourself that. Listen good, Candyman. I'm not gonna be anybody's fall guy. I wanna know where your boss is hiding. There was no glory in this. I hadn't asked for this crap. Trouble had come to me in big dark swarms. The good and the just were like gold dust in the city. I had no illusions. I was not one of them. I was no hero. Just me and the gun and the crook. My options had decreased to a singular course.
Other characters are voiced pretty well, though with a hint of cheese that was just of the time.
Dead. BB showed up in his tailor-made suit, gold watch and cufflinks to match. All way beyond a cop's pay.
Maxie.
Oozing suave charm. He was guilty as hell. What the hell does BB stand for anyway? Backstabbing bastard?
Come on, don't be like that. Have a cigar.
I don't smoke.
Maxie, you have no idea how big this is. It's huge. You have no idea.
I think I do. You're a bribe-taking bent cop who sold out his partner. Those mobsters in the subway were a dead giveaway. Hard to miss. Bet it was exactly like this with Alex. Up close and personal.
You can't win this one, Max.
No, but I can make damn sure none of you do either.
Even though it's aged a lot since its release, there's no denying that Max Payne still holds up today and earned its critical acclaim. If you can look past how old it is, you'll find a good story with some still fun action moments thanks to the bullet time. As for whether or not the big green version is the one to get, I'd say sure if you want to play it on a console over PC. If anything, it's a great beginning to the story of a tragic character. And beginning is the right word to say, as not only was Max Payne a critical darling, but it sold very well across PC and consoles. If that wasn't enough, Max Payne showed up on Game Boy Advance, and it was, for the most part, the same game on PC and consoles, complete with voice acting. Yeah, it's scaled back quite a bit, but still to have a portable version be as faithful as it can to the original is impressive. Rockstar, now owning the Max Payne IP, felt that his story needed to continue, and Remedy went back to work on a sequel. In 2003, Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne, was released on PC, PS2, and the Big Green around the same time. Now being touted as a film noir love story, the sequel boasts that everything is bigger and improved, most importantly the bullet time. But is that the case? Two years after Max took down the ones responsible for his family's murder, he's working back at the NYPD in his old detective rank. One night, he responds to a gunfight taking place at a warehouse owned by Vladimir Lem, a Russian mobster who helped Max previously. Max discovers a group of assassins called the Cleaners who are there attacking the place and ends up running into Mona Sachs, another ghost from Max's previous skirmish who he believed to be dead. Over the course of the night, Max and Mona must work together to figure out what these Cleaners are up to, uncovering another bigger plot that may be tied into Max's former life, and figure out the feelings that they have for each other. Right off the bat, you can tell that Sam Lake wrote a more complex story, as Payne's second outing isn't as cut and dry as the previous entry. Being a love story this go-round, and the fact that it's the most focused on, it's interesting to see Max have another love in his life after the tragedy he endured, even if the relationship between him and Mona may be a tad bit rushed. But then again, love can hit the hardest in the strangest of situations. Still, it's nice to see more of Mona since she was more of a blip in the first game. Remedy took the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and applied it here, as for the most part, Max Payne 2 plays exactly like the original, with a few improvements. There's a few more weapons added to the classic arsenal, though instead of a pipe and baseball bat for melee, you can use the butt of your gun to hit enemies. You still use painkillers to heal, and bullet time is still a useful tool, Though now the more enemies you kill in bullet time, the longer the effect lasts, and gets slower to give you more reaction time. That, and it lets you reload your gun like a total badass. You still have the unlockable difficulties like before, but you have to beat the game once to even access them. But in an interesting move, the game's difficulty actually changes depending on how you do. If you're breezing through the game no problem, the AI ramps up the heat, while dying too much eases up on the rampage and throws more painkillers your way. There's also a few stages where you play as Mona, and for the most part, she plays just like Max. Other than that, if you played and loved the first one, you'll more than likely love this one too. You can tell that Remedy felt comfortable with how everything played and just tweaked it, allowing them to focus more on the story, even though the platforming can still be a pain in the ass. Visually, there's been quite an overhaul in the character models as everyone looks pretty good, especially Mona and, well, Max. Granted, there is something lovable about that goofy grinning Max from the first game, but I do enjoy the look of this Max, this time visually portrayed by Timothy Gibbs instead of Lake. As for stages, while you're still in buildings for the majority of the game, the textures have improved quite a bit as well. I do have to give props for the nightmare sequences being a bit easier in the eyes this go around, and for not having me walk on blood trails. As for the audio side of things, the music is again fantastic, with the iconic piano theme returning, as well as what is perhaps one of the best themes for a game, Late Goodbye by Poets of the Fall. As you play through the game, you'll hear NPCs sing along to it while cleaning or taking a shower.
In our headlights, fair and bleak. On the asphalt. And my lies.
Such a late goodbye, and we keep driving into the night. Such a late goodbye.
But it's not until you hear the end credits where it just hits how well this song is written. That's because it was originally based on a poem written by Sam Lake. He took the poem to his friend, Marco Seresto, and asked him to turn it into a song for the game. The song Late Goodbye became so popular that fans of the game, including myself, scrambled to download the song. Because of this popularity, Marco and his friends that played on the song itself formed Poets of the Fall and put Late Goodbye on their first album, Signs of Life, where it debuted at #1 on the Finnish charts. Not only that, the band skyrocketed to superstardom in their respective country, becoming one of the best European groups out there, as well as winning tons of awards. They also keep their friendship with the guys and gals at Remedy today, contributing songs for their games, all from a song for Max Payne 2. Pretty impressive, I'd say.
I'll tell you one thing, Mona, you're no singer.
You've switched tactics. We need to talk.
Bring me a towel, will you? Now that you're here, you can watch my back while I get dressed.
All she had told me was that someone wanted us dead. The way she was acting, I was the only one in danger here. You'll have to give me a lot more than that.
The Inner Circle.
What of it?
The secret society is after everyone who knows of their existence.
Come off it. Prove it.
I have a contact inside. He's willing to talk.
Alfred Woden?
No. Anyways, I can take you to him.
From a gameplay standpoint, Max Payne 2 is the same, but better, and you can't go wrong with that, end of story. But add the story to it, and you have one hell of a ride that's worth playing through at least once. Granted, there's some things about the plot that might make you long for the straightforward story of the first, and that's cool. But if you're into tragic tales like I am, well, there's a reason why this game was critically acclaimed when released. Just like the first one, the Xbox version is the way to go if you want to play on console instead of PC, but either way is fine. Also, and I promise it's not because this game just made me a fan, but definitely check out Poets of the Fall's music, you won't be disappointed. Even though Max Payne 2 was a critical darling, sales-wise, it didn't hold a candle to the original, and because of it, Rockstar was weary of continuing Max's story until 9 years later on 7th gen consoles and PC. As for that game, well, it didn't do too bad, and I personally enjoyed it. Though truthfully, I'll always have a soft spot for the Remedy-made chapters in the tragic life of Max Payne. So thank you, Stefan, for requesting the Max Payne games. It was kind of fun to go back to these and play through them again and get those old memories coming back. And it's fun to do that with games every once in a while, especially ones that you love. But for now, as always, this is the Dali Popka saying, stay green, my friends. I'll see you next time. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode and want more of me and the Big Green, then click that subscribe button and the bell to get notified when new content arrives. I want to say a special thank you to my patrons for helping not just the channel grow, but me as a creator. You have my forever thanks. If you're interested in the channel and would like to help it grow further, consider becoming a patron today. For the cost of a soda or an item on the dollar menu, you could help myself and the channel provide the best source of Big Green programming and more. Once again, all the thanks and love.